NESN.com presents The Hurry Up.
Welcome into week 2 of the Hurry Up from the NESN studios. I am Michaela Vernava, and what a week 1 we had. I know football fans across America may have bitten their nails right off. So many close games. In fact, the average margin of victory was 7.6, the lowest for an opening week since 1993. And those Monday night blowouts, they really inflated that figure. Before Monday night, the average margin of victory was just 5.1. And of course, one of those thrillers was the Patriots' upset of the Cardinals in Arizona. So without further ado, let's send it right out to Foxborough, where our Patriots beat writer Doug Kide has more on the Pats.
Thanks, Michaela. This might sound a little crazy, but last week's 23-21 win over the Cardinals could actually have some franchise-changing implications. Jimmy Garoppolo was extremely impressive in that win over the Cardinals, and the Patriots have to start thinking about whether they want to trade Garoppolo or keep him around as the heir apparent to Tom Brady. Garoppolo certainly looked like the guy's got 3 more weeks to prove it, however, and that starts against the Dolphins this week. Bill Belichick is using the Patriots' Week 17 loss to the Dolphins as motivation for his team. Patriots have added many players, subtracted many players since that game. Guys like Julian Edelman, Chandler Jones, Dante Hightower didn't even play. The Patriots relied on their running game when all they had was Steven Jackson. Tom Brady threw deep 6 times. So there are many reasons to believe that this week's game against the Dolphins, especially with it being home here at Gillette Stadium, will be much different than that Week 17 loss. But Belichick will definitely continue to use it as motivation and drive down his Patriots team that just so impressively beat the Cardinals in Week 1.
All right, I'm here now with Mike Cole. It's time for some Week 2 picks. Mike, who is your lock of the week?
Lock of the week this week is the Houston Texans. I thought they looked pretty impressive Week 1 against the Chicago Bears. They're at home again this week against the Kansas City Chiefs. They're 2.5 3-point favorites. The Chiefs came into Houston last year and absolutely smothered them in the playoffs. But I think people forget that the Texans played with Brian Hoyer as their quarterback. He played horribly. J.J. Watt played 1 snap in that game. And I look at the matchup, and over the past couple seasons, even into Week 1 of this year, Kansas City struggles to protect the quarterback. One thing Houston does really well, they get after the quarterback. I think that ends up making the difference. They win by maybe a touchdown.
I like that pick because even though DeAndre Hopkins getting a lot of attention, Will Fuller came up clutch last week, so maybe he'll have another good week this week. Who is your upset?
My upset of the week, if you really want to call it that, this is a weird line, 2.5 3 points. Jacksonville Jaguars. I like them to go out to San Diego, go on the road, and actually beat the San Diego Chargers outright. Again, I thought I saw a lot of good things out of that Jaguars team last week. And the Chargers, looked real impressive for a half of football. They got out to a huge lead in Kansas City and just pooped all over themselves, basically. San Diego returns home with their tails between their legs. Making matters worse, they lost Keenan Allen for the rest of the season, Week 1. That guy just can't catch a break. So you look at the up and down, it just doesn't seem like a good matchup for San Diego. I think Jacksonville actually wins outright or at least covers.
I'd agree with that because the Jags, even though they lost this week, kept it real close against the Packers. So I like it. And Mike, the Spread podcast.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Oh, it's legit. It's a video podcast, actually, stepping into the 21st century. We make our picks every week. It's a lot of fun. So check it out.
Here at Gillette Stadium as the Patriots prepare for their next opponent, the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins surprised many on Sunday, only losing by 2 to the Seattle Seahawks. What are you seeing from them so far this season?
Well, yeah, I think that game was one of the biggest surprises of opening NFL weekend here. The Dolphins didn't end up pulling it out, but they were 10.5-point underdogs. That was the biggest point spread of any game on opening weekend. They lost by 2 points on a Russell Wilson touchdown right at the end of the game. But, I don't think a lot of people are expecting much from this Dolphins team this year. The consensus is that they're a bottom of the AFC East team, way below the Patriots and even below the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets, who also lost on Sunday. But, the Seahawks are one of the best teams in the league. A Super Bowl hopeful, definitely one of the favorites in the NFC. And for this Dolphins team to play them as close as they did, that says something about the team Adam Gase has down there.
What do you think about the Patriots matchup with the Dolphins? Do you like it?
Well, I think this game's all going to be about protecting Jimmy Garoppolo, which is basically what we can say before every single Patriots game until Tom Brady returns. Garoppolo was protected pretty well behind a patchwork offensive line against the Cardinals. But the Miami Dolphins have a very good defensive front. They really got after Russell Wilson. They sacked him 3 times. They hurried him throughout the game. If they can do that again to a young, inexperienced quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo, their secondary isn't great, but if they can get that pressure up front, I think they can really cause some problems for this New England offense.
I'm here now with Nick Goss, and we need to hit the fantasy waiver wire because I know a lot of fantasy owners out there, if you had Keenan Allen, I'm sure you're in panic mode right now, but luckily there were a lot of wide receivers who looked good in week 1. Nick, who do you have your eye on?
I have my eye on Will Fuller, Houston Texans rookie. He was absolutely phenomenal his debut. 5 catches for 107 yards and a touchdown. More importantly, he had 11 targets. It's very good for a rookie. And DeAndre Hopkins is on the other side of the field, meaning Fuller should have some good matchups, some one-on-one coverage, so I like that going forward.
You know, I like that as well, but I've had my eye on Willie SNEAD. Nick, would you pick him up?
Absolutely. Drew Brees led the league in passing yards last year, and he might do it again. Over 400 yards in week 1. Willie SNEAD had 9 catches for 172 of those yards. There's plenty of yardage to go around between him and Brandon Cooks, so I think SNEAD is a must-own and a must-play in every fantasy league.
And now for the poor souls out there who had RG3 as their quarterback, what can they do to replace him?
I would actually pick up his week 1 opponent, Carson Wentz, rookie for the Eagles. He has plenty of good receivers. Jordan Matthews, Nelson Aguilar, Zach Ertz is a pretty good tight end as well. He is a rookie. He is going to make mistakes, but in a 1-quarterback league, I like him as a backup or a bye-week replacement.
I like it, Nick. He sure did show signs of promise in week 1. And now let's send it over to Zach Cox, who has power rankings.
I'm Zach Cox, and here are my NFL power rankings for Week 2. My big climber this week are the Pittsburgh Steelers, who jumped from number 6 to number 3 after waxing the Washington Redskins on Monday Night Football. The star of the game for Pittsburgh was running back DeANGELO Williams, who rushed for 143 yards and 2 scores in place of the suspended Le'Veon Bell. The Steelers' offense can put up 38 points with Bell on the sidelines. Just imagine how potent it'll be when he returns from his suspension in Week 4. At the other end of the spectrum, one team that really disappointed me this weekend was the Indianapolis Colts. Coming off a mediocre 8-8 season, the Colts kicked off the 2016 campaign by falling behind 21-3 to the Detroit Lions, rallying all the way back to take the lead in the 4th quarter, and then finding a way to lose anyway after giving up a field goal as time expired. As for the Patriots, they remain atop our list after upsetting the Cardinals in Jimmy Garoppolo's first NFL start. The road only gets easier from here for Garoppolo, who will now take on the Miami Dolphins, Houston Texans, and Buffalo Bills before handing the reins back to Tom Brady in Week 5.
The name of the game is show and tell. That means we're going to bring objects, and I'm going to give you some developing thoughts I have on the 2016 NFL season. The first object I brought, some soap. Why, you might ask? Well, I want the NFL to clean it up a little bit this week. There were too many head-to-head shots going on Cam Newton last week. And listen, I love some of the savagery of football. Don't get me wrong. Everybody does. But at some point, you got to put safety first, right? Especially with all these concussion issues going around. And I just think it was so egregious to the way the NFL handled the situation, the way the Panthers handled the situation. I mean, Newton clearly got his bell rung last week. Want to see him clean it up moving forward. Next object I brought. Some dice. Roll the dice a little bit. Why, you might ask? Well, because Jack Del Rio rolled the dice in Week 1, and it worked out in the Oakland Raiders' favor. Went for 2 late in the ball game, ended up pulling out a victory against the Saints. Would love to see more coaches do it. Even Sean Payton, who was on the losing end, said he would have done it if he was in Del Rio's shoes. Want to see more teams going for 2 in situations, particularly late and in close games. Now, the third object. Not really an object, but right here. Big old photo of Bill Murray from Groundhog Day, and that's because if you slept through Sunday and just woke up Monday morning, it would probably feel like Groundhog Day because the Patriots are 1-0 and everybody else in the AFC East is 0-1, which is pretty much what New England fans have been accustomed to and what AFC East fans have been accustomed to over the years. Every year you wait for somebody to push the Patriots, somebody to close the gap. But the reality is, folks, this is the Patriots world, and the Jets, Bills, Dolphins are just living in it. The gap is as big as ever. We're going to send it back to you, Michaela.
All right, thanks, Ricky. Insightful stuff there, and that will do it for this week's edition of The Hurry Up. We'll be right back at you next week for Week 3. Make sure to keep it locked on NESN.com, and make sure to check out our podcast.